AI touched everything, but it didn't fix anything. If it's complicated, AI is not going to be able to sell for you. But you can use AI to fill in some of the gaps, speed things up. I've had founders come to me and say, I want to have 20 employees and I have an 80 AI agents. You can't give that much control over to a machine because, like we talked about on the manufacturing floor, a lot of people have spent $5 million on a robotic stamping polishing machine. $5 million on a lease, right? 20-year lease. They still make mistakes. In the future, it'll literally be a human, and then a circle around him will be a robot, a device, an assistant, verticalized knowledge base that he interacts with. AI will help drive revenue. It's not going to replace your salespeople.
At least you're good salespeople, right? Virtual Select is an advanced production system for manufacturing, leveraging augmented intelligence of silicon and carbon-based workforce. Daren Fields is a commercialization officer, AI solutions consultant, public speaker, and creator of the Apex 8 methodology.
We are committed to getting people up to the level where they understand what we're saying so that we can then move on in the progression of manufacturing. I love being on this show. I like being on here with you because I think you're bringing the reality of it is let's keep it real. It's not as good as they say it is. It's not as bad as they say it is. It's somewhere in the Goldilocks middle. And that's what I like about doing a podcast with the right people. I'm pretty picky. The biggest, scariest movie on AI is not The Terminator. The one that I worry about.
All right, everybody, welcome to the AI Space Podcast. AI isn't just the future, it's a force rewriting the rules of business, wealth creation, and society. If you're a founder, innovator, or technologist, this is the AI show for you. The question you have to ask yourself is, will I blaze the path, follow the crowd, or be left in the dust? Wow, this is season 2, 5th episode already, and we're thrilled to have Daren Fields, co-founder and CEO of Virtual Select. Virtual Select is an advanced production system for manufacturing, leveraging augmented intelligence of silicon and carbon-based workforce. Daren Fields is a commercialization officer, AI solutions consultant, public speaker, and creator of the Apex 8 methodology. I'm Sanjay, Kalluvilayil, founder and CEO of Stonehouse Advisors, your trusted advisor for AI founders and businesses focused on go-to-market strategy and execution. Daren, first of all, welcome. On the AI Space Podcast, we jump right in to highlight game-changing insights that help founders drive innovation and scale business initiatives. Once again, first of all, welcome. But what do you see as the key trends in AI going into 2026?
One of the big trends and a welcome trend is that the hype cycle and the buzzwords are starting to wane a little bit. I think people are starting to really realize that this is a little bit different than a lot of things we've experienced in the tech space, in that really we have a very high power level of the tech stack now that's just available to everybody. It's kind of like my manufacturers and stuff for years. A lot of more advanced, technical systems were extremely expensive and hard to get to. And the reality of it is that people are really starting to realize that AI is like oxygen. It's just a question of how you use it and what you're doing with it. And I think the add-on to that is that people are starting to realize that they don't want to become their own AI agent builder, but they're also starting to realize that they want autonomy. And so they're trying to settle into that Goldilocks moment of, how do I have a good vendor that gives me AI, but doesn't make me become an independent software vendor? I want to be able to go do what I actually do as a company. So it's really starting to settle into that pattern right now.
Right. What do you see in the medium to long term?
Medium to long term, I do see that the specialization, the verticalization of the knowledge bases of all of the GPTs are going to just continue to expand. I do see a lot of algorithmic systems out there, edge systems, what Jan Bond calls like the decoupling process. So you know how you have kind of your main financial system, you have your main resource planning system, then you have things like, shop floor clocks, you have a warehouse management system, transportation management system, all these separate little cats and dogs. Those are all really kind of morphing into, let's just build an app for that. And we'll have somebody take care of it for us while we completely have a hyper-personalized transportation management system for our distribution company in our town, in our geo. It's very hyper-personalized, but I don't want to take care of it every day. I want my cake and eat it too. So I want complete hyper-personalization, but I want somebody else to take care of it. So that's what I see happening in the tech space.
Awesome. What do you see as the top AI strategies to grow and scale a business?
Top strategies. One of the key things is that Yes, AI will help drive revenue, but no, it's not going to replace your salespeople. So, what the good folks have
At least
figured,
you're good salespeople, right?
well, yeah, well, I mean, I should be careful, right? I mean, I'm more of an industrious guy. I'm in the industrial sector, so everything that my colleagues would, generate revenue around is complicated. It's not like buying a new shaver. Obviously, AI on the retail side and all the commodity side can sell for you, and it will sell for you, and those shifts will occur. But Apex 8, the book that I wrote, really drives home the point that if it's complicated, AI is not going to be able to sell for you. But you can use AI to fill in some of the gaps, speed things up. So, for example, when it comes time to rehearse for your big technical demo on solar panels, or the latest and greatest AI black box that you've created, when you go into your rehearsals and you do your research and you prepare for those meetings, you now have AI agents that are built just for that process, and you leverage them to the fullest. You walk in, you are loaded up with knowledge, you are loaded up, and you've taken it as far as you can, and you're fully prepared to do that demo. That's where AI can help you. But also, the recognition of the trend is that it's not going to close the deal. It won't. It's not going to do it. And just because you have AI doesn't mean you don't have to rehearse and practice and prepare as hard as you did before. You do. It's just going to be a better quality preparation with AI in your back pocket. But it won't be any less work. I promise you that.
Yeah, we'll definitely dive deeper in those aspects. One thing, if you look back on 2025, maybe what's a one insight that you got that kind of surprised you or unexpected or maybe out there in space, right?
It literally moved and affected everything. I mean, AI touched everything, but it didn't fix anything. Because I've been involved in GPTs and LLMs and augmented intelligence since 2016 with my years at Infor. The reality of it is that it was definitely something that would help you resolve problems, right? So you would work through it with your machine. Then when AI shows up, it actually can help get to resolution, but it doesn't get to resolution without the human, which is really interesting. But the bottom line is that it touches everything, but it doesn't fix anything. And that's just really what I've realized is like, okay, we still need the humans.
Well, let's take a step back. We can breathe now for a little bit. So, Darren, first of all, welcome again to the show. Thanks for helping me kick off
Happy
season
to be
two.
here.
Yeah, I think we're going back and forth on just timing and stuff, but I'm glad it worked out. So, tell us a little bit about your foray into AI, maybe some of your early roles that kind of got you
Sure.
here.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, it really did all start when I was working underneath Charles Phillips over at Infor Software. I was always on the manufacturing side for the most part, the industrial side of that house, mostly net new, actually always net new. And we had launched a product called Coleman, which was really a derivative of some of the AWS technology that was out at that time. Your personal assistants, Alexa, all that stuff. And so we were taking that and we were trying to verticalize it as quickly as we possibly could. And it was a lot of fun. I mean, that's when it really started to sink in that science fiction wasn't going to be fiction for much longer. And over the years we really figured out what it takes to take something that was a little bit out there, a little bit out in outer space, dealing with a risk averse industry like manufacturing. And when you're walking into a very physically dominated arena like a manufacturing shop floor, and you're talking about space age Star Wars stuff like an AI agent that'll help you run your floor better, it was a big lift. Yeah, that was a big lift, Sanjay. But we had to learn how to undercut that, how to bring that down, and how to kind of break it into categories that could be digested. And one of them really was augmented intelligence. We really looked at that and we said, all right, that's a better acronym AI than artificial intelligence, because artificial just doesn't make people feel very good. And so what we learned back then was it's about augmentation. It really is about augmentation, and that's all you really ever want to do. Again, it won't solve world hunger, but it'll certainly feed people a little bit faster on a Tuesday, right? So finding that spot, it took us a while, but I was fortunate and blessed enough to be in that situation where I was there on the ground floor, and I watched it come through and watched it come forward, watched it get smarter and smarter, watched the algorithms and the neural systems get going. Of course, good thanks to gaming. Of course, we have GPUs, we had chips that just got faster and faster and faster and allowed us to see a lot more, algorithmic tables at one time. And really, we just really threw a massive nuclear reactor on top of what we were already doing in, the late 20 teens.
Yeah, and then we talked about some of the AI, but we have a lot of technologists, CEOs on here. But your background is in commercialization and revenue generation, right? So talk to us a little bit about maybe your sales training, some of your public speaking, your Apex 8 methodology book, et cetera, right?
Yeah, you bet. Yeah, Apex 8 came out in July of this year. And it's, I guess you could say it's an AI native book. It wasn't written before, it was written after. And it was really about the nearly, 10 years that we were selling advanced and augmented intelligence, because there's an art form to selling it. And that's what Apex 8 is all about. It's how do you take these big Star Wars type concepts and how do you get an audience that doesn't live, eat, sleep, drink, and breathe this stuff, right? So I'm very proud of Apex 8. It does a very good job, and people that go into it with understanding that will get through it. But it's definitely a revenue generator, commercialization, strategy book that captures all those years of me selling Alexa on steroids, if you will.
Yeah, I think a lot of times people think they talk about if you build it, they'll come. Oh, I got a really great product. But at the end of the day, if you're not solving a pain point that someone's willing to pay for on a repeated basis, something is broken, right? And you have to be articulated at a level that they're going to understand, because nobody's buying Alexa on steroids or a consulting service or even Apex 8 book. They're buying an expected result. Do they trust you enough to believe that you have the methodology, the experience to deliver an expected outcome, experience, or results, right? So maybe you can talk to that from you. I mean, I think obviously you're very seasoned in this space, but your perspective on that, right?
Yeah, and you hit the nail right on the head. I mean, in the book we talk about discovery, but it's not a tech, architecture discovery. It's a deep examination of the prospect, right? And and as you know, in the tech space, prospects are 12 or 15 member teams. It's a 15-headed dragon. In there, we talk a lot about the mental preparation, the conscious competence that it takes to get to the problem. Because like you said, in today's world, the customer's problem is not that they don't know about it. The customer knows all about it now. As a matter of fact, they now have their own GPT agents that they go, hey, I'm going to be buying a new warehouse management system. I'm going to be buying a new shop floor system. Which way should I go? So, I mean, you're looking at a conversation between a project manager that has to put in a new warehouse management system and his GPTs, and they're going to flush out a lot of work that doesn't need to be done anymore. So when you look at commercialization of a solution, like you said, and we're moving to a lot of solution, it's not about educating them anymore. It's about getting to the problem and showing them how you're going to solve that problem. And like you just said so elegantly, you got to be able to trust them. And so what the book teaches you is how to build that trust organically, not in a gimmick way. Not, well, have them say yes 4 times in a row, and the fifth time you ask them, they'll say yes. These are all gone. Those are all done.
Oh my gosh, yeah. When you attend these conferences and okay, or online things, can I get a boom in the chat? Can you do this and that? And yes, and give me a fist pump. And it's like it's all psychological manipulation, right?
It is. It is. And those days are gone. I talk about the asymmetry of knowledge. If we examine the trade of being a revenue generator, because the word sales, unfortunately, just doesn't mean what it used to mean anymore. So if you talk about revenue generation and commercialization of an idea, product, or service, when you talk about that, the asymmetry of knowledge is completely shifted. It used to be, in the 70s, 80s, 90s, you would show up and they go, hey, let's get some sales guys in here so we can learn about X. Well, they don't do that anymore. That's not even how this works. And the sales guys used to go, well, I need to have a qualified lead. Oh, well, shut up. That game's over anymore because I only have so much time on my day, said the top sales guy. And 50% of my time is spent educating these people. Well, they don't need you anymore. Newsflash, they don't need you anymore. And then the other thing is that AI, again, affects everything, fixes nothing, but it affects everything in the way that they prepare. And so they're going to literally ask, should I go with Oracle? Should I go with SAP? Should I go with Infor? What do you think I should do? And it's gonna answer that question because its mandate, its directive, what it's told to do is please you. And so it's going to go and it's going to earn its 4 stars. or it's thumbs up. A lot of people don't realize how important that thumbs up is when training your own personal GPT subscription. But when you really get into the sales process, all the knowledge is now on their side. And what that knowledge is what is their real problem. What's really keeping them up at night. Oh, well, you should ask them what's really, you know what? Do me a favor. Quit being so lazy. Go do your own research. Get close and just know this. Whatever AI tells you from the K report or any of the research you do on your prospect, it's still only it's gonna be missing the last 10% of that. And that is my brother-in-law is now on the board of the company, and he thinks we need to go into AI, and I don't agree with him. And so I'm here, and I want you, Daren, to help me understand how I'm going to get out of this jam. That's the real problem. And that's when you have a real partnership, a real conversation, and you say, well, listen, hold on. Let me tell you what I know. You tell me what you know. Let's mock up a couple ideas. Let's validate that ideas. And if we can't get to some agreements here, let's part as friends. Sounds good to me, Daren. Trust, right? Yep. And there's a whole methodology in that book that just doesn't manipulate. You earn. In that book, I don't even use the word close. I use the word finalize purposely because you don't have to close if you've earned trust, solve the problem, and connected all the dots. You just finalize it. And that's where the top revenue generators in tech will go, you're right. All I got to do is say, does this, keep checking. Is this, are we on the right track? Validate, and then get to the point where it's like, okay, why can't we proceed? Well, sales are down. You're not going to close anything if sales are down and the board is saying you can't spend $2 million on this project you've been talking on. You're going to have to now back up the boat, go back over it, bring its value back up so it's more valuable than waiting on sales to return. Again, the value architecture of a Apex 8 methodology deal is really all about value, de-risk, and move on. That's
right. I think
that's
and
it.
that's related to like articulating the opportunity cost of doing nothing, right? Or keeping the status quo, right?
Yeah. And honestly, I've raised, millions and millions of dollars, over $200 million, just strictly on project-based revenue generation. That's not even counting the other things I've created. But when you look at that no decision, I didn't have a lot of those. I had some early on at Infor. I had some of those for about a year. But when you come at it the Apex 8 style and you're validating, like I can do a discovery, I can do a kind of a solution consulting process called prototyping, and I can do a validation within about 90 minutes or so now that AI is here. I couldn't do that before, but now that AI is here, I can do it about 90 minutes. I can tell you whether or not we have a deal or not within 90 minutes. And literally, you get good at it because you're like, well, it doesn't, like, for example, Sanjay, they say, oh, I want to build a transportation management system. And then you mock it up real quick on a vibe coder. But bam, that's really cool. I mean, I love it. I took to that like a duck to water. Like this, like, holy crap. Yeah, like that. And I say, so is this going in the right direction? Yeah, that's what I need. I want a better way to move my cement trucks around the state of Ohio, and I want to make sure they have all the right tools. Everything. Okay, good. So let's prompt that into the vibe coder. Let's use those little cool, neat little parlor tricks, and let's show you how that works. Okay, that works cool. Yeah, that's it. Now, this is the big validation question. This is great. So you're on board, Sanjay, and you say, yeah, this is it. This is what I want. So good. Who else needs to see this so that we can make this a reality? If they say nobody, you ain't got a deal. They say, well, we're going to need to get the COO involved. We're going to need to get the so-and-so involved. So, and who in there is going to be who? Because I can see, Sanjay, you're on board with this cement transportation management system that we're going to have up and running in about 2 months, 3 months. Yeah. Who else? What else? Who's going to be against us? Oh, if they're telling me all this, do they trust me, Sanjay? They trust me. And you've earned it by knowledge, execution, and you're just letting it be organically happen. You're using AI to speed it all up, but you're still going back to the human things of,
So in your methodology, do you uncover the decision makers earlier in the process versus after
Oh
you've done the
yeah,
mock-up? Because that's one of
it's
the
in
first
the
things you
first
should do is
90
like,
minutes.
are you the decision maker, or do we need to include other, is it a committee, or do we
Yeah,
need to
but I don't
include?
ask it that way. See, so what you do is in 90 minutes or so, approximately, depends on what sounds like what you sell. But in the very first meeting, you should know, you will know if you follow Apex 8, if you put in the work, it's always going to be work, folks. If you put in the work and you prep, you then walk in and go, I know this. I'll give you a prime example of how you can take the time out of it. If you do the discovery in Apex 8 the right way, you do it. I'll show everybody how to do it some other day. But the bottom line is you can do it. Again, you're going to get about 80, 90% of it. All of the secret sauce is not going to be out on the public domain. There's something happening in that boardroom behind the scenes that you don't know enough about. So you've got to get to that early. Then when you can solution consult, when you can go, okay, so the cement trucks are going out, but you're saying that when they go out, sometimes they're not bringing all of the trowels and all the tools and all the components that they need. For example, you could have a pump jack and then you needed an extra long
So
one
let's
because
let's
it
do
was.
this, because I think you're getting this. Let's maybe understand a little bit more about virtual select, because I think some of that information may be relevant to. So let's get into virtual select, and tell a little bit about your current role, mandate, what the vision mission is, the target segments and use cases. But I think that's going to be tied to that story. I think people need a little bit of context for that, right?
Yeah, and they do. And yeah, and forgive me if I rail on, but the reality
No,
of it
no, it's
is
good. It's
that
good. But let's.
I mean,
I
but
think it's good.
this gives you a hint of why the book you definitely have to sit down and kind of get into it because there's a lot of moving parts to getting somebody to spend $4 million on a piece of tech, right? I'll just
Yeah,
leave it
yeah,
at that.
for sure. So you're co-founder, responsible CEO, responsible for commercialization, right?
Yep, correct.
So tell us a little bit about what's your vision, mandate, who you're targeting, some of the use cases.
Yeah, virtual select is fantastic. It's kind of a culmination of my career. I've been in manufacturing, since 2000, Y2K, and worked
We
for
survived. We
manufacturers.
survived. We're here.
Yeah, right. Yeah, I remember those days. But yeah, so we got through that. But I've worked for manufacturers. I even in the '90s, actually, I worked on a very small production floor. I worked around a lot of distribution, so on and so forth. So I've been in manufacturing and the whole ecosystem for decades. And now Virtual Select is really dedicated to making those folks' lives better. To be honest with you, it's something that I always wanted to do. And when we look at manufacturing, it's a fascinating world in that we have a lot of creative, we have a lot of innovation and creation and design, and a lot of cool stuff that didn't exist before gets created. But then you have to make it appear, right? It's like one giant magic trick. You think about, okay, I want to build, I want to invent something that'll make the combustion engine go faster, right? So somebody came up with the turbocharger. But the reality there is that somebody had to actually make it. And in the manufacturing space, we have one side, which is the creative side, and we have the other side, which is the physical side. Black and white. Nope, you can't do that. And then you have but this is what I want. And the two of them constantly are at each other. But it's the dynamic that really creates things. It happens in software too.
And you need that friction, right, too.
You need that friction, and the funny thing is now that we talk about Silicon Valley being AI Valley, it's still all the same principles. Somebody innovates it, somebody says you can't do that, and it's just they go back and forth. So you need that friction, and the best products come out of that scenario. But for years and years and years, the manufacturing space on the shop floor, we've talked about Industry 4.0, we've talked about all these things. It just hasn't happened for a lot of people. 70% have like not like unconnected systems, maybe even more if you depending on how you define connected. But there's a good 45% have no digitization on their shop floor at all. I mean, none, nothing. And they're running on 20, 30-year-old machines and they still work. And it's like, what is this big gap? So Virtual Select, the investors and the principal came to me and they said, can you come help commercialize this? And so it's a really good opportunity to really start digging in with the manufacturers that actually put their hands on everything. And it's fantastic to be able to do it in the AI era where we were going to have the approach of silicon based and carbon based actors working together. There are robots already on a lot of the manufacturing floor. There's all kinds of silicon based actors on the floor. But now we've got to really start bringing in that augmented human element. And we really got to start letting the folks that are on the shop floor really start to have a say in the autonomy of how things are going to be created and built, how to prevent defects, how to prevent recalls. I mean, there's like 800 and something recalls last quarter alone from just the major manufacturers that reported them.
And it seems
So
and
when
it
we
seems it's
look,
been increasing over the last few
yeah,
years too,
it is.
exponentially.
It is. It is. It is increasing, and it all has to come to the ideas that people seem to think that systems are going to actually build something, and that's not true. It's the humans that'll do it with systems supporting them.
So, are there any specific verticals within the manufacturing space that you're looking at that are like the low hanging fruit or the ones you're trying to approach?
Yeah, I mean, discrete manufacturing is something that's near and dear to my heart. Discrete manufacturing is the actual finished product that's a SKU, and they're the things that you see on the shelf, and that it's winter time, so that heater, radiated heater at Home Depot for $99.99, that's a discrete product, right? It's got a SKU and it's got a few pieces into it. And those are the folks that really more complications than you would think. And as you go up from a radiant heater all the way to things like, a lawnmower and to automotive and all the way through to medical devices and everything else, those are all still at the end of the day discrete products. And they have many, many, many things to keep track of. So we're going to be spending time with them, helping them get connected. And the very first place we're starting is the data collection. We first got to get the data collection, then we've got to get it into the cloud. And then we have AI agents sitting in the cloud ready to bring on the domain knowledge, right, of manufacturing and work with the humans to monitor the floor. Defects happen, but there's all kinds of warning signs that they're about to happen. Things, measurements are shifting a micron, a micron, a micron, a micron. It's still in spec, but there's a point where it's going to all start to become a bad defect. And that's when you get done. Quality control looks at it and says, these are all bad. These are all going to trash. And now you just lost $2 million in 1 week. So and then the pressure on the manufacturing team is like, guys, give us tools that let us catch it before it happens instead of yelling at us after it happens. And so we're going to be coming to their side and helping them solve that problem, with AI. And
That's the main pain point, that be able to proactively identify the issues or the things that are going to cause the defects so that way you're not having those issues at the
yeah,
end, right?
stop the recall before it happens is what I like to say.
Gotcha. I think that's good. So now let's get into technology like AI, ML, architecture, some of the frameworks, architecture, platform tools. So how are you approaching it from a silicon slash AI perspective, right? Is there a certain methodology or framework how are you architecting it? So maybe just
Yeah.
some thoughts on that.
I mean, having thought neurally for so long, neuralistically, I mean, it's always been a check and a balance. It's always been a columns and rows. It always has, and it still is technically, right? So when we look at AI, we're just able to look at 3,000, 4,000, 40,000 algorithmic tables at one time. That just all speaks back to the hardware. There's really there's no magic in it. So when we look at what we're doing at Virtual Select, is that we are applying AI internally and we're applying AI externally, but they do different roles and they have different jobs. But what we do is we say, all right, we are an AI native company, meaning that we have silicon based workforce and we have carbon based workforce and we have, a robotic physical workforce. And so when we look at Virtual Select, we'll do things like we'll do fundraising. When we go to our funding strategy, each one of us has our own agents that have been trained by us. They think like we do. They understand that we're industrialists. They understand that we like motorsports and manufacturing. I mean, my GPTs know me very, very, very well. They even swear. Like people like, why does your GPT, like my wife will go, why does your GPT swear at you? Well, because I swear at it. So guess what? It swears at me. So it knows me, right? So when you get that rhythm, we know this in analytics. We know that the more data that he has for me, the better he knows me, so to speak. He's just a silicon machine, but
So
that's
let me
what he
ask you a
is.
question on that. So because you're going from manufacturing, right? So as a base, I'm sure there's a lot of, like you said, rows and columns. So is there a lot of traditional machine learning involved?
Yeah, tons.
I would suspect, right? So from a machine learning perspective, you're trying to do a little more prediction, like predictive AI to figure out, potential defects. So what are you looking from an ML perspective? What are you looking at?
Yeah, I mean, ML is really trying to do the crystal ball. What we're doing at Virtual Select, and this is all comes from our founder, is high resolution. So when we look at computation up until the AI era, we did a lot of resolving. Now, resolving goes back to what we talked about with the quality control issues and the recall. So what happens is that some of these major brands, they don't find out sometimes that they have a quality issue until it's already out to public. Now you got to come back. Now you're getting all kinds of work tickets coming in from your dealers, and your dealers or your distribution is telling you have a problem. You are so far out of the loop as a manufacturer that you didn't even know you had a problem until your distribution center started saying it over and over again. Now what do you got to do?
Or people are returning it on their Amazon. They're getting like thousands of Amazon returns, right?
Or you're getting 2 stars and 1 stars, and why, and you don't know why. And so now you go into resolve mode. You now have to take all of your data and all your tech and backtrack and reverse
Oh, but
engineer.
here's my question on that: do they actually have the data for like these were the specs? This is a production data because garbage in, garbage out.
They
If you don't
have
have
they
like,
have they in all fairness, they have it. It's just not at hand, and now they're going to have to
and it's
go
not,
into
it's probably not cleansed or sorted and synthesized in a way that's meaningful in some sense, right?
and they're going to have to resolve. And so resolve is a verb, right? Resolution is a noun. So when you look at Virtual Select, we are going to provide high resolution, right? And what that means is that we will see it on the line before it goes bad and before it costs you millions. Will it be zero scrap? Maybe. That's our ultimate goal, is that you have zero scrap at the end of the day, because every day every manufacturer has some scrap. But if we can if
And
we
scrap is, for
can
those that aren't aware, manufacturing that's like leftover byproducts. Kind of like when you carve up a piece of wood, there's going to be leftover wood at the end of the day, right? If you especially put in
Yeah.
some sort of shape.
Well, and there's and the scrap too is where, like, when you say, oh, I miscut. Like, you're making an oil tanker trailer and you miscut. That's going in the scrap too. That's
Yeah,
not just the
exactly.
that's not just the extra. That's the mistake.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And there's
That's
a lot of
almost like
that. People,
almost like spoilage in a sense, but not
yeah,
spoilage. It's a different word. Yeah.
they're gotchas. They're surprises, and they're mistakes. And everybody's trying to keep their job. And nobody's going to run down the hall and tell the engineer that they messed up. They're just going to go put it in the trash.
Well, the other thing too is if you think about a production line, right? The last thing you want is that production line to stop, especially the people that are on the line, right? And so sometimes they allow certain percentage of stuff to go through as long as it fits within the some sort of confidence interval or what's allowed, right? Some sort of limits. Because yeah, if you stop that thing, that's millions of dollars that's lost, right? And going back to that friction, the designers want it a certain way, but hey, it's worked this way, and we don't want to stop because they got to feed their families too and deal with other things, right? And that's going back to the sales things, uncovering hidden needs or other things,
Yeah,
right?
that's it. That's exactly it. And again, that even that scrap thing, right? So a lot of times I would walk into an enterprise situation where I would say, okay, here's a feature or a benefit of our ERP, right? We have Infor LN and Infor M3 and so on and so forth. We have a benefit to it. But they didn't even know they had the problem that it solved. And they don't care either, because they don't actually have it if they don't know it.
And if they're not measured on it.
And if they're not measured on it, and if they're not paid on it, if they're not, I mean, there's so many of these things. So it's like, okay, forget the theory or the golden path, as one of my solution consultants, Robert Miller, used to say. We can't go in there with that. We got to know what the real problem is. And the real problem is, yeah, this particular culture, at this particular company, in this particular state, those guys don't report scrap because they don't want to get fired. So they don't even know they have the problem. So when you talk about resolution versus resolving something, resolving is after the fact. Once it's already kind of got out, or it's got to the quality room. And again, the other thing about quality, surveys and everything else that you're sampling, they're only looking at 1 every 100, or 1 every 5, whatever your sample rate is. If now I know that Harley Davidson and Indian, they'll sit there and tell you that they look at every single one that goes through. Okay, maybe they do. but how do you catch it all? And now, to your point, if you are going to resolve mode, you got to go back through the data. Let's say a couple of bad apples got through the quality control process, which it clearly is, as you said, it's on the rise. Well, now that's all. It's just the cost is just going through the roof. Let's not even talk about warranty. Let's not even get into the millions and millions of dollars. Even a $250,000 a year manufacturer has to put out on warranty costs. Let's back all that up to the point of where you actually have high resolution to a problem on the line. That's the whole goal of Virtual Select. We want to catch those screw holes going this way, the plate that's moving now this way, everything's shifting in microns. And if we can catch it, shut down the line for just a second, to your point, we can't do it long, shut it down for just a second, converse with our AI watchtower and say, okay, hey, I'm on station 34. Well, he already knows you're on station 34, but I'm on station 34. I've got the alert. I see the alert. I see the problem. I see the cause. Can you call up maintenance right now and get them over here? It's already done it, man. It's already on the move in my world. And it's like, it's already, and then Bill, this thing's starting to slip. Yep. The plate that holds the hydraulic that puts the machine that's moving the screw hole is loose. Let me fix the machine, which then keeps the drift, which then gets you back online. 45 minutes, we're back up and running. And the 45 minutes versus the multi-millions of dollars in recall, night and day. But real-time catch of the drift of those specs that are intolerant. And oh, by the way, my engineers have told me that you can be in spec, like let's say you have 10 workstations, you can be in spec in all 10 workstations, but at the very end, you're out of spec. I'm like, what?
Yeah.
They have these tables and
Yeah,
all those
if all
tables.
10 is, say you can allow maximum 5 errors, but if everyone's producing 2 to 3 errors, and then by the end of it, now it's all added up, right? Stacked up. So you've done ML. I guess you're doing some generative AI. You talk about AI agents. So I think you've talked about that. What's the future beyond that? You said so you have humans in the loop. You're combining AI agents and humans. It looks like so. You've done. You also talking about robotics. I'm sure, especially if you want more precision manufacturing, right? And especially when things can be a little bit more intensive, it's probably better to have robotics in there versus having someone injure their shoulder or what have
Yep.
you, right?
Yeah, but robots still make mistakes. We see it in the tables. We see it in the drifts. We see it getting out of spec. It itself gets out of spec, and therefore it gets out of spec. That's going to be a big business. Just working on robots, keeping them calibrated. That's going to be a big service. Like what's coming down. I think it's really learning how to collaborate with AI. That's really the key. And so when I talked about the operator and he's talking back and forth to the watchtower, which is a black box of domain knowledge that's been trained by Virtual Select on how to resolve these problems and actually achieve high resolution on the fly. It's communication. So collaboration, communication, ideation, learning how to do that is what executives are going to have to learn. Middle management's going to have to learn it, and so will the operators. When I look at the digitals and the millennials and all those guys and the Gen Zs or whatever number we're on, I'm a Gen Xer. I mean, the reality of it is that
Same here. I'm a Gen Xer too.
yeah, and Gen Xers are in a really good spot. I'll tell you that. We can talk about that another day. But the key is that when I work with Joshua Normandin and some of the other people that are co-founders on other entities of mine, the way they think is different, and the way they collaborate with AI is different than the way I collaborate, which is different than the digitals and the 20-year-olds and the 18-year-olds. So what we get out of AI is really goes back to what you said just a couple minutes ago is obviously machine learning is a big part of it. So is human learning. Tables, columns, and rows are a big part of it and
I
still
like
remain
that.
a big part of it.
So is human learning. I think in this world of AI, we forget about the human learning part.
Yeah,
The
we're
machine
learning. Yeah, we're learning. I work differently. You work differently. I think differently. Some of the other industry guys are like, okay, well, what's the prompt on this one? I'm like, oh my god. So we are learning how to think in different verticals and columns and rows. But that organization is still going to be critical. So collaboration is going to be a key, and I think that what Sam and that crew over there, was that Junie or whatever his name is, when they talk about these wearables and we talk about these carryables and we talk about these sidekicks, that's where it's going. I mean, we're at Virtual Select. We know we're going to be popping those things down at the workstation as well, and it'll be listening, it'll be talking, it'll be taking in tons of data. I don't know if have you seen that pendant? You can wear a pendant now that goes to your phone and then it records everything through the day. And then at night, when you're laying in bed, you're like, okay, so what great ideas did I come up with today? And it's going to just organize those columns and rows nicely for you. And then you're going to go, okay, now I got more things to do tomorrow.
So let's shift gears a little bit. What about the AI space podcast resonate with you? Hey, I like to be a guest on the show, you know?
Well, I think there's a lot of education that has to happen. I just got an email from a very serious group that wants me to do a speaking engagement. And they really, I mean, it was a very sweet, kind, generous letter about a page long and said, we are committed to getting people up to the level where they understand what we're saying so that we can then move on in the progression of manufacturing. And I said, oh my God, these people are smart. So I love being on this show. I like being on here with you because I think you're bringing the reality of it is let's keep it real. It's not as good as they say it is. It's not as bad as they say it is. It's somewhere in the Goldilocks middle. And that's what I like about doing a podcast with the right people. I'm pretty picky. And it's about getting people to calm down and just settle into, okay, I am still the master. It is still my servant. And now I got to figure out how to actually do that. How do I control an 18-wheeler, on the highways of America? I mean, that's not an easy thing. Driving a semi is a
Right.
tough.
And if it turns into a robot like a transformer at some point.
Yeah, there you go. And again, and then in the end, I mean, I talked to my buddy Bill over at Convertible Trailers, and they've got a lot of AI going into the trucking trailer business, right? Both externally on the service side and both on the manufacturing side. So, again, it affects everything, doesn't fix anything, but it certainly helps, right? And so that's what I like about the show is you kind of go right down that middle.
Yeah, no, thanks. I appreciate it because when I started this, I wanted to give back, and I'm sure other people trying to figure out the space, trying to build in the space, trying to grow. I said, why don't I bring on the founders, leaders, innovators, technologists actually building the space and
Neat.
share real world insights? No hype, no nana banana this, no chat GPT-5 this, you know, but also I've learned there's another reason I have the show. We'll get to later. Is like the existential thing is like there's a lot of things that if we don't going back to this goes back to your insight, especially manufacturing. If you're slightly off, right? Like if I was heading from I live in Dallas, and you told me to come, and where are you based again?
I'm in Las Vegas.
Yeah, Las Vegas, right? And so if I was slightly off in my direction, I could probably end up in Baja California, right? Because
Yeah.
if you look and right, yeah, we're probably slightly off right now, but I've had some things where I realize if we don't course correct, we can be really off, and there can be an existential threat to humanity. So those are I'm trying to bring up some of the risks, the benefits. No alarm bells, no nothing like this. But what are some of the risks too, right? That we need to be cognizant of coming down the
Yeah.
road.
And that's a great point. And it's really an over reliance of AI. There are a lot of people walking out there and listening right now that think that AI can solve world hunger. They really believe it. And they want to, and
It can cause world hunger too.
it can't. But I mean, I've had founders come to me and say, I want to have 20 employees and I have an 80 be AI agents. You can't give that much control over to a machine because, like we talked about on the manufacturing floor, a lot of people have spent $5 million on a robotic stamping polishing machine. 5 million on a lease, right? 20-year lease. They still make mistakes. Never, ever. If anything's important, this is where your grandfather's rules still come into play. If you want something done right, do it yourself. So, like you just said, like lots of people are cutting and pasting, and they're using listen, stop all that. Use it as a collaboration process. If you're an executive and you got to go into a meeting, I promise you, you still have just as much work to do in the AI era as you did before. If you think you're going to live a different lifestyle because of AI, you are under the wrong impression and you're going to get toasted. And I did get toasted. I remember when I answered a colleague back and I was in a big hurry and I just cut and pasted straight in there. And he wrote me back. He goes, is this you or is this AI? People know, right? They know. I mean, not just the M dashes, not just the spaces, just the words that you use. And I'm like, you're right, dude. And he never talked to me again. And so, that is a lesson that I had to learn. It was a very low cost, very simple, but a painful lesson in that AI is not going to do the work for you, man. It just isn't. But it'll help you, but it ain't going to do it for you. Collaborate. But like when you and I were emailing back and forth, that was me typing or me talking to text. But I would go to AI and go, who is this guy? What does he do? And so when we hit this Goldilocks pocket, what I call Goldilocks prompting, when you're Goldilocks prompting, you're just using it as your assistant. Remember, you're Batman and it's Robin. That's the difference. And Batman uses a lot of tech, but at the end of the day, Batman is still a human. Again, if you're a DC or a Marvel guy, okay, have fun. But Iron Man is a totally different story as well. In that that's all AI. Jarvis is all AI, and that's great. But even then, the human has to be involved. And most of the movie is about Tony Stark. So stop buying into the hype. Realize that AI is not going to solve world hunger, but it'll help you deliver that next meal a little faster. That's all.
Yeah, before we continue, I want everyone to invite everyone to follow Daren Fields. Where's the best place for them to follow you? On LinkedIn?
Yeah, right now the best way is go LinkedIn Daren Fields, right? Or go to darenfields.com,
Yeah, everyone make sure to like, comment, subscribe to the AI Space podcast because that helps to grow and have amazing guests like Daren. And if you're stuck in your business, book a meeting, free 15-minute session. Let's do some quick questions right now, maybe just one insight. So, vision, mindset, strategy for long-term success. What would be your one takeaway for that for folks out there?
The vision mindset that I have at Virtual Select, and I have a chance to build this, is that we're really not, we're going to see a different organization. We're just going to see a different organization. I have been, ever since, really since about 2018, I've been working on the premise of work pods, right? And these work pods are, I'll just say, half AI and half human. But the big thing is autonomy. By giving autonomy, the businesses even in history have given people their autonomy to design, to create, to be creative, to build things. Those are the companies that do really well. They always have, and they always will. As far as control and, like you say, managing data and what do you do with all that data, I think we're finally at the point now where we can give a lot of autonomy to our employees, our partners, and our business associates. And at the same time, we can use AI to do the really boring, non-fun stuff, which is keeping track of the ones and zeros. And getting that balance in there, that Goldilocks balance in there is where my vision is that we're going to go. And I think we're going to get there with verticalization of what I call the black box. The black box is a very high specialized, verticalized, domain dominant and knowledge that works with humans to make them the best that they can be, meaning the augmented human is really the focus.
And then from a sales and marketing perspective, maybe what's one insight, especially the one nugget maybe from your methodology, Apex 8, or just from your experience that you're going to 2026. What's that one thing people should take away from a sales and marketing revenue generation
It,
perspective?
it, it really is that in the revenue generation world, the education of what your product does is probably 80% known before you even meet them. So be honest, be your authentic self, and realize that that's all AI really wants out of you. And it wants to see how many 5 stars you got. It wants to see the feedback, the sentiment score. When I was in prompt engineering school, the very first thing we learned was how to find out the sentiment score of someone you're doing business with, meaning what do other people say about that person. So for those people in the audience that have always been true and moral and honest, but didn't always get the breaks. Well, now AI is here. You should tap into this now because now it's your ally. And now the small guys can now be just as big as the big guys based upon their ethics, their quality of their product, and their ability to actually just be themselves and run their business how they want to run it. It's super cool. It's a great time to be alive. It's a great time to be in business, that's for sure.
I think that's a great insight. We always talk about trust and authenticity on this show, and then I like that how you're saying with AI we can make it our superpower, right? In terms of scaling or streamlining operations and scaling a business, right? What are some insights around that?
Well, I'm a motorsports guy. I was born
Yeah,
on
I see all the helmets behind
yeah,
you.
I was born on the racetrack practically, and when my mind was being mapped, as they say, and you spend weeks trying to get 1/10 of a second faster out of a lap, you're very pro risk. You become a very pro risk person. So the one thing though that I did learn in that game, in that world, life or death, frankly, is that there's a place where you go fast, there's a place where you go slow. When it's time to go fast, but it's usually not in the places you think. So what I'm saying is that I see a lot of starters, a lot of founders, a lot of investors. And it's like, oh, we got to get going, we got to get going. Well, not everything's going to be a get going. Some things are going to be, you got to go slow to go fast. When you hit those hairpins, when you get to those tight spots, measure twice and cut once. Then when you got to go, like smiling and dialing and generating revenue and flooding the market with your messaging, whatever that may be, that's when you go fast. So it's that balance of when to go fast and when to go slow. And AI will help you with that. It will help you with that. You got to trust it. Now you're back to your favorite topic, trust. But build. One of the investors said to me the other day for Virtual Select, I'm out running around saying, hey, let's buy into this dream here. They said, Daren, I'll give you a check, but I got to meet the people. And so that's what it all, at the end of the day, you got to go fast where you can go fast. You got to go slower, you can slow, and go slow on who you have on your team. Go slow on who you're investing with, and go slow on who you're picking. Take your time. The hockey stick in America is a different thing, but the reality of it is you just got to show progression, an overall trend. Hockey sticks are great. I understand all that, but and I know that's really more hype. Realistically, how it's really going to go authentically, a little, a little, a little. And you need time and you need money to do that. So let those things breathe and you'll be successful. You'll be very successful.
Well, I think also before the hockey stick, there's something called the Valley of Disappointment. Everything's going like this, and then there's a dip, and you're like, everything was going great, and that's the Valley of Disappointment is really going to test you because you're going to look into the abyss. You're going to have to face yourself. You have to decide, okay, do I go forward or start? Some
Yeah.
people go to alcohol or other things as entrepreneurs.
Yeah. Did I
Startup.
make a
That's when you
mistake?
have to really face yourself because if you cannot get through that portion, that hockey stick won't happen. The hockey stick will beat you. You'll end up beating yourself with the hockey stick, right?
Yeah, yeah, and and the other derivations of that is like the 10-year overnight success.
Yeah.
It's just like, and you're right, and in the AI era, I've had to retool the way I build companies and build business and generate revenue, and I did, and that's why I wrote the book. I do plan to write another one on commercialization. But the neat thing is that we have all come through a major. I mean, we're not in an AI era. We're in the knowledge age, and like you say, it's just sometimes you're going to have to look into the abyss and go, "What the hell am I doing?" That's okay. You're not alone. You got great shows like this that you can dial up and get
And
motivated
then we
by.
try to talk about it. It's not easy being an entrepreneur, and it's. I mean, yeah. So in terms of democratization, right? Obviously, AI is a great democratization tool, but what do you see as making it more accessible or increasing the awareness? Because I'm sure you deal with challenges like you're going to manufacturing situation, right? I don't think all manufacturing jobs are easy to be replaced by AI. I mean, maybe robots and other things, but there's probably some fear and some things. But how do you kind of address that, right?
Yeah, I mean, I can just speak from my heart, and that I thought it would go that way too. A couple of years ago, I thought it would go that way, but as I've lived through it and been on the shop floor, it just isn't going to happen. I mean, it doesn't. It is still always going to be ones and zeros. It's always going to be columns and rows, and it's always going to be a black and white answer. It can never really give you that vibe answer. Even we talk about vibe coding, and but people get into trouble on vibe coding because vibing isn't really the same as ones and zeros. So it's just like, oh my goodness. So really what it is if I look at the org board in the future, it'll literally be, a human, and then a circle around him will be a robot, a device, an assistant, a verticalized, knowledge base that he interacts with. But he or she is still in control. It's, I will admit that's less of it, and some of the basic tasks are there. But the other thing that I do see happening is, like, let's say, for example, let's talk about, an industry that we all kind of clearly know and understand, and that's the legal. And if we look at the legal community, and every legal, years and years and years ago, when you would go into a attorney's office, there was always the library, and the library was where all their knowledge and all of their favorite cases, and that was their edge in the marketplace. Then LexisNexis came out, and then machine learning arrived. But now we're dealing with the drafting of letters and so on and so forth. I have a colleague that's in a real estate dispute at a civil case, and he has used 2 AI agents to get through the freaking court hearing. And the opposing attorney said, in 30 years, I have never had anybody question the law as much as this person. And then 20 minutes later, the judge found in favor of my colleague. So what does that mean for the legal profession? That means the legal profession will actually converge, meaning that the what do you call them, the paralegals and the assistants and all these people, we're now going to merge into one job where they will work with AI to deliver to the attorney what he needs to prepare for court. Because the one thing that's going to have to always happen in court, and this is we all know this is going to be, it has to be a human attorney talking to a human jury with making a human decision about a human life. And so now the legal profession, as far as writing letters to your neighbor about that bush that keeps growing over your fence, the paralegals and the attorneys, they will just simply be blessing that stuff as it passes through the AI realm and just giving it their good stamp of approval. Where the real business is going to be is when the humans have a serious human dispute. That part's not going away. So you build a whole legal model business that's different than what it was before, but basically the same at the end. Gavel down, which way did they go? Right. So when we look at manufacturing, the same thing. How do we put more power and autonomy onto those people's world so that they can manage the quality and the process and the production of the manufactured products? It's just a different thing, but it's still going to be the same, where the humans at the end have to look at the product. Yep, it's beautiful. Yep, I like it. Yeah, I'll buy it. It's still going to be the humans.
Yeah, I think an insight for me that I got from this too is like makes me think is like, there's always since the dawn of society, there's this esoteric and specialized knowledge. First it was the priests and the scribes and the kings and the nobility, then the upper class. Then, now we get, specialized like lawyers and doctors and all this kind of stuff, right? I think AI can open up that and open up different opportunities. And that shifts us into on this podcast we always talk about ethical and responsible. So how do we balance AI innovation with responsible development? And the context I want to give, going back to what you said, yes, you are very pro risk in terms of, you said you have that, let's say, that race mentality, right? But we would not be having this conversation if you were only pro risk, because you were also you had the guardrails in place, because when you're taking that hairpin curve, you have to know mentally in your there's a guardrail that you've put. I need to take my gas off here, and I know when to hit the gas, the acceleration at the right point in the curve, right? Because if you didn't do that, you would not be here. We would not be having this conversation, right? So how do we make sure that the future AI is like an Autobahn versus in Dallas, we have the 635, or you see all these, you see all the traffic jams in major highways. It's not something like that either, right?
Right. Well, yeah. I mean, it's a method. Being a two-wheel guy and a four-wheel guy. So I've raced both curves, straight, circle. I've done it
Roads,
all.
off road, everything, right?
I've done it all. Traction is the key, right? And traction is it. I mean, and that's all you live and die by in motorsports. Everything is about traction. And if you can get it to grip and stick, you're in good shape. And if you can't, it's a long day at the office, especially in a car. But the two-wheel method, which is amazing, right? Being out in the elements and being that close to death every time you're there, it is very exhilarating. But at the same time, what you figure out in the terms of motorcycle riding and racing is method. The way you hang off the motorcycle, the way that you are part of it. So, for example, in a Formula One car, you got what you got. When you're strapped in and you've got all the belts on there, or your stock car, any of the four-wheel world, you are strapped in, and whatever your car chief gives you is what you mechanically have, and you're going to do the best you can. Then you're going to have to take it from there. And there's great drivers like Max Verstappen and those guys. I mean, I just was watching the other day where Max had a completely loose car, and he just figured out with that car how to get the best lap time as he could. That's his job. You take what you got and you maximize as best you can. And there's all kinds of methods to do that. Are you loose? Are you tight? Are you this? Are you that? Are you throttle? Are you brake? These are all methods. So you're right. I'm pro risk, but I've always said that I'm very methodical. I am not the one, to your point, I am not the one that always, my whole career racing, I was not the one with the fastest lap times in the first practice. That was not me. I methodically worked my way into it. What am I working with? I would use that whole session to figure out exactly where I'm at and where my equipment is at, and what the temperature's at and all that stuff. And I just methodically would go through that. And then the next practice, I would wake it up on the next practice. And if I really nailed it and really was, applying my rules of conscious competence and really breaking it down, the training and the practice part, then when we went into the show, I could go into unconscious competence, which means that I don't think in the car, and then we go. And so worrying, being afraid, scared, all of these things in business apply as well. And so, yeah, practice with your conscious competence. Use your methods for your conscious competence, not for manipulation, back to your ethics point, but for execution of organic and authentic execution. But then when the green flag drops and it's time to rock and roll, let your muscle memory go. Let it all just fly. Let your subconscious take over, because then you will be amazing at what you're doing. And you can't do it with fear. Fear, fear, fear. You can't do it. And so, that's when it comes to ethics, it's the fear that will make people choose a particular path because they don't have faith in their company, and they will use AI to try and manipulate the humans. The biggest, scariest movie on AI is not the Terminator. That's not it. I mean, no, that's not it. The one that I worry about, the one that's the kind of the use case that I could actually see happening, is iRobot, where a corporation is down on profits and they want to take over the world, and they just put in a new directive into a robot. That still all comes from a human. It didn't come from AI. It came from a human. That's
Yeah,
the ethics part. The ethics part is
yeah,
the humans. If the humans
yeah,
are ethical, the AI will be ethical. If they're unethical, AI
yeah.
will
It's
be
how we
unethical.
train the AI. And going back to that, when you're on your bike, you're in that balance of like life and death, right? It's like gravity's taking you to the ground, and you have a mental guardrails as you're riding your bike, right? I've never really done that, but I mean, so I think that's important insight going into how we go into this AI space. So in terms of encouragement, any concluding thoughts, insights, encouragement to those seeking gain in space or struggling to build their business?
Yeah, I mean, I know it gets tough. I mean, I think one of the things is that you have to get out of your head. You have to get the head trash out. You have to. I know the wife's mad and the mortgage is late and all that stuff. I get it, but you're still gonna have to take time and go out. Got to get out of your office. It's like, just take 30 minutes and go out and go be with other humans. Get away from all this engineering and this AI and this tech. Just take a break and just get on your motorcycle and go. And then when you come back, realize that you're a rare breed. That most people can't do this. They just can't. Most people can't get in a race car. Most people can't get into an entrepreneurial business. Most people can't go ask somebody for money. It's just you're just one of the few that's there. And just because you've run into some bumps and you've had a bad practice session or what have you, it doesn't matter. You're good. You're just going to have to reset. And so that's why I say get out of your office. It's the difference between free practice one and free practice two. There are many times when I've walked away from the absolute nightmare and just got out of the car and walked over to the other pits and said, dude, I am a mess. And you watch how your fellow humans, most of the time, will come to your aid and just go, dude, actually, I think you were killing it in turn two. I think the rest was dog shit for sure. But maybe work on whatever you were doing in two and four, and then maybe we can spread that around. Thanks, brother. And then your next practice session's there. So get out, spend time with your peers, spend time with your own kind, get away from the AI, watch this show, tune into this show, check out for a little bit, and then go back in, because you don't have 4 or 5 days to have a bad day.
Yeah, no, I think it's an important reminder about human connection, whether it's joining a community, going to a networking event, getting on your bike, reading a spiritual book. I mean, I actually came to this conundrum too. I have a lot of stuff on my plate, and I need to work after 5 p.m. But my dad's 82, and both my parents are 82. Physical therapy appointment they need to go to, and usually my wife or somebody else does it. But lately, I said, you know what? How often am I gonna get this chance? So taking to the appointment, I don't have the time for it per se, but you got to make the time. Your family, all that stuff's much more important, right?
It is. And we as entrepreneurs, we fight with banks, we fight with investors, we fight with lenders. I mean, but they're in the business too. And so who you pick to be around you is important. So take the time to pick the right people around you. Frankly, I didn't know that until about 7, 8 months ago. I didn't really realize what that meant. I thought I did, but I think I would tell your audience that just keep focusing on family, and then it's kind of a hack, because then you'll get reminded of your own ethics, and then you'll start to look at your partners and go, I don't think I like this person anymore. And one of the things that Alex Mayer told me, who was the founder of Zeus and Deal and all these, brilliant guy, had the fortune to spend a little bit of time with him and do some business with him, but he says, look, you got to fail fast. If it's not working and you find that you're not being true to your ethics, then you got to be willing to walk away at the drop of a hat. And That's advice that really resonates with me right now, in that I'm going to partner with, have invested with, and work with people that I believe that are of my ilk, and stick to my community, my family, and my orbit, and my universe, and yeah, and my my beliefs and my spiritual side. If you're not, I'm out. I'm gotta go. And listen to these highly successful people all say the same thing. Like, look, Daren, I can walk in on a Tuesday, and if I see something in a Tuesday afternoon, I kill it by Wednesday. That is the key of being a great entrepreneur. I'm like, okay, sounds good. And now I know what they mean. Because in racing, if I had something bad in my car, why would I want to argue with it? Why do I keep driving? I'm going to wind up on the wall, and who knows what happens. I can't do that. So my mind mapping is, hey, if it isn't working, don't keep doing it. Just do
Yeah.
something else. Change it.
Yeah, there's only so much time and energy, right? So, man, Darren, I can talk to you all day about the future of the AI space and all these insights. We're coming up on time, but for our listeners, where's the best place for people to learn about you, connect with you? That's LinkedIn, your Darren Fields
Yeah,
page.
really, the things that they probably want to know about virtual select, virtual select .ai, but the way really to connect with the book is apex8book.com, right? Apex8book.com. Go there, check it out, see what you want to do. I put things up there from time to time. The other one, of course, is DarenFields.com. You can always get me there. That's kind of my keynote page and my education page. But come find me. I'm open, and I will say this to anybody that's listening. If you guys want a Kindle version or electronic version of it, just ping me. Maybe give them my email if you want. I'll get them a free copy, electronic copy, because it's that important. I do want people to understand how to work with AI to still be human.
Yeah, no, fantastic. Everyone, make sure to check out and connect with Darren Fields. Don't forget to follow us on LinkedIn, subscribe to our YouTube channel, find us on your favorite podcast platforms like Spotify or Apple. Man, I've learned a lot from this episode. I can't thank you enough, Darren, for sharing your insights with us today. I'm your host,
Yes.
Sanjay Kalluvilayil, founder and CEO of Stonehouse Advisors. I hope you gained a wealth of game changing real world insights to grow, transform, and scale to new levels and dimensions leveraging AI. See y'all next time. Thanks a lot, Darren.